The stars gleamed like cold diamonds against the endless void of space as the transport ship docked at Valon's orbital station. Jack Davis stared out of the viewport, taking in the sight of the planet below, a swirl of deep blues and emerald greens. Beautiful yet somehow foreboding. As a Terran officer, he had heard countless stories about Valon, a world renowned for its warrior culture and the near-mythical trial night. No one had ever survived a trial night with General Lara Vex. Not in over 100 years. Jack adjusted his uniform, the silver insignia of the Terran Special Forces catching the light. He was the first human ever invited to participate in this ancient ritual, and the weight of that responsibility pressed down on his shoulders like a physical force. "Officer Davis," a voice called from behind him. "The shuttle to the surface is ready." Jack nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. He had been selected after a minor skirmish with Valon forces, where his strategic brilliance had managed to save his unit against overwhelming odds. The Valonians, rather than seeking revenge, had extended this scuba invitation. An honor, they called it. Jack wasn't so sure. The shuttle ride to the surface was tense and silent. Commander Rathak, a veteran Valonian warrior who would act as Jack's guide, sat across from him, studying him with unblinking silver eyes. "You are smaller than I expected," Rathak finally said, his voice a rumbling bass. Jack smiled thinly. "We humans tend to rely more on our minds than our muscles. That will not save you tonight," Rathak replied bluntly. "General Vex has broken warriors twice your size with half the effort." "Then I'll have to be more than twice as clever," Jack said, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel. Rathak's expression didn't change, but something like respect flickered in his eyes. "Perhaps you will. We shall see." The shuttle landed with a gentle thud at the base of a mountain range that seemed to pierce the sky itself. Jack followed Rathak through winding corridors carved directly into the mountain, lit by strange blue flames that cast elongated shadows on the stone walls. "The trial arena has existed for millennia," Rathak explained as they walked. "It was built by our ancestors to test the true strength of warriors, not just physical prowess, but mental fortitude and spiritual resilience. And no one has ever passed General Vex's trials," Jack asked. "No one has survived them," Rathak corrected. "There is a difference." The corridor opened into a vast chamber, where a small group of Valonian officials waited. Among them stood a figure that could only be General Lara Vex herself. Jack had seen images of her, but they didn't do justice to her imposing presence. She was tall, as all Valonians were, with skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. Her hair, jet black with streaks of silver, was pulled back in a tight braid that reached her waist. The scars on her face and arms told stories of countless battles fought and won. "So," she said, her voice surprisingly soft yet carrying easily across the chamber, "you are the human who thinks he can survive my trial night?" Jack met her gaze steadily. "I'm the human who's going to try." A hint of a smile played at the corner of her mouth. "Bold words. We shall see if they are matched by bold actions." She turned and began walking toward a massive set of doors at the far end of the chamber. "The trial night begins now. Follow me." "Terran." Jack glanced at Rathak, who nodded once. "May strength find you," the commander said, a traditional Valonian blessing before battle. Jack took a deep breath and followed General Vex through the doors and into his trial. The chamber beyond was nothing like Jack had expected. Instead of some elaborate arena or obstacle course, it was a simple circular room with walls that seemed to shift and shimmer like water. In the center was a small platform with 2 chairs facing each other. "Sit," Lara commanded, taking one of the chairs. Jack complied, his senses on high alert. I expected something more physical. The trial night is not a test of brute strength, Terran. Any fool can swing a sword or fire a weapon. Her eyes narrowed. It is a test of everything you are and everything you are not. The walls around them began to pulse with light, and Jack felt a strange sensation, as if his mind was being gently probed. First, we will test your resolve, Lara said, and your ability to withstand pain. Before Jack could respond, pain exploded through his body, not physical pain, but something deeper, as if every nerve ending had been set on fire from the inside. He gritted his teeth, fighting against the instinct to cry out. Interesting, Lara observed, watching him with clinical detachment. Most break immediately. You are resilient. The pain increased, becoming almost unbearable. Jack's vision blurred, his breathing becoming ragged. He focused on a technique he had learned during his special forces training, compartmentalizing the pain, acknowledging it but not letting it consume him. Your body believes it is in agony, Lara explained, but it is merely an illusion created by the trial arena. Your mind makes it real. Then, my mind can make it unreal, Jack managed to say between clenched teeth. Something flickered across Lara's face. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. The pain suddenly ceased, leaving Jack gasping for breath. You passed the first test, she said. Few manage that, but we have only just begun. The room shifted around them, the walls becoming transparent, revealing what appeared to be a battlefield. Jack recognized it immediately. It was the site of his first command, where a mission had gone catastrophically wrong, resulting in the deaths of half his team. Your memories betray you, Jack Davis, Lara said softly. Let us see how you face your failures. The scene played out before them, Jack's younger self making the fatal decision that led to disaster. He watched, his heart pounding as his comrades fell one by one. He had replayed this moment countless times in his nightmares, but never with such vivid clarity. Tell me, Terran. Lara's voice cut through his thoughts. What did you learn from this defeat? Jack swallowed hard. That confidence without caution is just arrogance, that every decision has consequences that extend beyond the moment. And yet you continue to lead others into battle. Yes, Jack admitted, well, because the alternative is to let fear rule me, because sometimes the risk is necessary. Lara studied him thoughtfully. Fear is a wise counselor but a poor master. You understand this. The battlefield faded, replaced by a different scene, a young Lara Vex, leading a doomed mission of her own. Jack watched, startled, as she made a tactical error that resulted in a massacre of her troops. You're showing me your memory, he realized aloud. The trial night is not just about you facing your demons, Terran. It is about understanding your opponent as well. Her voice was steady, but Jack could see the pain in her eyes as she watched her younger self amidst the carnage. What did you learn from your defeat, General? Jack asked softly. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. That confidence without caution is just arrogance. The scene faded, and they were back in the simple chamber with the shifting walls. The second test is complete, Lara announced. Now we move to the third, the test of intellect. The air between them shimmered, and a three-dimensional holographic representation of a battlefield appeared. Jack recognized the tactical scenario. It was a famously unwinnable simulation used in Terran military academies to teach cadets about accepting inevitable defeat. You have 100 heartbeats to find a way to victory, Lara said. Begin. Jack studied the scenario, his mind racing. He had failed this simulation himself as a cadet, as had everyone who had ever attempted it. The parameters were designed to make victory impossible. Outnumbered forces, inferior weaponry, unfavorable terrain. But as he looked at it now, with years of experience behind him, he began to see patterns he had missed before. The terrain, while unfavorable for a direct assault, offered possibilities for guerrilla tactics. The enemy forces, while numerically superior, had a rigid command structure that could be disrupted. 80 heartbeats, Lara warned. Jack began manipulating the hologram, splitting his forces into smaller units, positioning them for maximum effect. He couldn't win through conventional means, but perhaps 60 heartbeats. He identified the enemy command center and designated it as the primary target for a small strike team. Then he positioned the bulk of his forces to create a diversion on the opposite flank. 40 heartbeats. Jack then did something unexpected. He surrendered a key strategic position, seemingly giving up a vital advantage. Lara's eyebrow raised slightly. 20 heartbeats. With quick, decisive movements, Jack completed his strategy. The surrendered position became a trap. The diversionary attack became a pincer movement, and the strike team was positioned to take out the enemy command at the critical moment. Time, Lara announced. The hologram played out Jack's strategy. What appeared at first to be a desperate, losing battle slowly transformed. The enemy forces, despite their advantages, became disorganized as their command structure was disrupted. Jack's smaller units, moving with greater flexibility, exploited the confusion. The battle ended not with total victory, but with something rarer, a negotiated peace, with both sides walking away with their essential objectives met. You changed the parameters of success, Lara observed. Instead of seeking total victory, you aimed for sustainable peace. Total victory often comes at a cost too high to justify. Jack replied, Sometimes the best outcome isn't winning, but ensuring that everyone loses as little as possible. Lara's expression was unreadable. An unusual perspective for a warrior. I'm a soldier, not just a warrior, Jack corrected gently. My job is to protect, not just to fight. Lara rose from her chair. The third test is complete. Follow me to the fourth. She led him through a door that hadn't been there moments before, into a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly ahead of them. The fourth test is one of endurance, she explained as they walked. Both physical and mental. What do I need to do? Jack asked. Walk until you can walk no more, Lara replied simply. They walked in silence for what seemed like hours. The corridor never changed, never curved or ended. Jack's legs began to ache, then burn, then go numb. His mind started playing tricks on him, suggesting that they were walking in place, that the corridor was some kind of treadmill. He glanced at Lara, who showed no signs of fatigue. How long have we been walking? He asked eventually. Time has no meaning in the trial arena, she replied. It could be minutes. It could be days. Jack's military training kicked in. He knew that in endurance tests, the body would often surrender long before it truly needed to. The mind was the first to break, convincing the body that it had reached its limits. Tell me about yourself, General, he said, attempting to distract himself from the growing discomfort. How did you become the keeper of the trial night? Lara glanced at him, seeming surprised by the question. After a moment's hesitation, she answered, I was chosen after surviving my own trial night, many cycles ago. I was different then, younger, more certain of everything. And now, a faint smile crossed her face. Now I am older, less certain but more sure. That's a paradox, Jack noted. Life is a paradox, Terran. The more power you have, the more you realize its limitations. The more you know, the more you understand how little you truly understand. She looked at him thoughtfully. You are attempting to distract yourself from the pain. Is that against the rules? No, she admitted. It is, in fact, a valid strategy, but few think to employ it. Most focus on the physical challenge to the exclusion of all else. They continued walking, and Jack continued asking questions about Valon culture, about Lara's experiences, about anything that came to mind. Though his body screamed for rest, his mind remained active, engaged, and somehow, the corridor that had seemed endless began to feel conquerable. Eventually, without warning, they reached a door. Lara stopped. "We have arrived," she announced. Jack was confused. "But I haven't reached my limit yet." "That is precisely why we have arrived," Lara explained. "The test ends not when you can walk no more, but when you understand that your perceived limits are merely illusions." Jack felt a new respect for the Valonian general growing within him. These tests were cleverly designed, teaching as much as they evaluated. Through the door was a chamber unlike the previous ones. It was vast and dark, with what appeared to be stars twinkling in the distance. "The fifth test," Lara said, her voice echoing in the darkness, "is the test of fear." The floor beneath them vanished, and suddenly they were floating in what seemed to be open space. Jack's heart rate spiked as his body registered the sensation of falling, though they remained suspended in the void. "Everyone fears something. Jack Davis." Lara's voice came from somewhere nearby, though he could no longer see her. "The question is, what will you do when confronted with your deepest terror?" The void around Jack shifted, and he found himself back on Earth, in his childhood home. He was no longer an adult, but a small boy, hiding in a closet as angry voices shouted outside the door, his parents, fighting again. The familiar fear gripped him, the helplessness, the certainty that somehow their anger was his fault. The scene shifted again. He was at the military academy, facing the ridicule of his peers after failing a crucial test. The shame burned through him as freshly as it had 15 years ago. Another shift. He was on the battlefield where he had lost half his team. But this time, he was powerless to act, forced to watch as his comrades died one by one, calling his name, asking why he had failed them. Through each scenario, Jack felt the fear threatening to overwhelm him. But something kept him anchored, the knowledge that these were just memories, just emotions. They had power over him only if he allowed it. "Fear is natural," he said aloud, unsure if Lara could hear him. "It's not the absence of fear that makes a warrior, but the ability to act despite it." The void shifted once more, and now Jack found himself witnessing Lara's fears, her childhood terrors, her professional failures, her deepest insecurity, the fear that despite all her accomplishments, all her power, she was fundamentally alone, separated from others by the very strength that defined her. Jack felt a surge of empathy. Despite their different origins, despite the adversarial nature of this trial, he recognized in Lara a kindred spirit, someone who had built walls around their vulnerabilities, who had transformed pain into strength. "You're not alone," he said quietly. "None of us are, unless we choose to be." The darkness around them began to recede, and they were once again standing in a chamber with shifting walls. Lara was watching him with an intensity that was almost physical. "You saw," she said, "and it wasn't a question." "Yes," Jack admitted. "And yet you do not think less of me for my fears." "Why would I? They're what make you human." He paused, realizing his mistake. "Well, not human, but you know what I mean. They make you real." For the first time, Lara smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her severe features. "You are an unusual warrior, Jack Davis." "So I've been told," he replied with a small smile of his own. "The fifth test is complete," she announced. "Now comes the sixth and final test, the test of will." The chamber around them transformed once more, becoming a simple room with a table between them. On the table was a device that looked something like a crystal orb. This, Lara explained, is the heart of trials. It will connect our minds directly. There will be no barriers, no secrets, no place to hide. Everything you are, everything you have ever thought or felt or done, will be exposed to me. And everything I am will be exposed to you. Jack hesitated. That sounds invasive. It is, Lara agreed. It is also the truest test of a warrior's spirit. In battle, in life, we present only what we wish others to see. But true strength is measured by what lies beneath the surface. Jack considered this. The idea of having his entire being laid bare was terrifying. Yet he had come this far, and something told him that this final test was the most important. What do I need to do? He asked. Place your hands on the orb, Lara instructed, and do not let go, no matter what you experience. I will do the same. Jack took a deep breath and placed his hands on the crystal surface. It was warm to the touch, vibrating slightly beneath his fingers. Lara placed her hands opposite his, and their eyes met over the glowing orb. Remember, she said softly, everything you are. The world exploded into light and sensation. Jack felt his consciousness expanding, merging with Lara's in a way that defied description. He was suddenly experiencing two lives simultaneously, his own and hers. He felt the weight of her centuries, for Valonians lived far longer than humans. The countless battles, the victories and defeats. He experienced her childhood on a Valon that was different from the one he had seen, more primitive, more violent. He felt her struggle to prove herself in a society that valued physical strength above all else, despite possessing a brilliant tactical mind. He witnessed her rise through the ranks, her eventual ascension to the role of trial keeper, and beneath it all, he felt her loneliness, the isolation that came from being feared and respected but never truly known. Simultaneously, he knew that Lara was experiencing his life with the same intimacy. His childhood with parents who fought constantly, his determination to escape that chaos by joining the military, his struggles and triumphs, his deepest regrets and brightest hopes. The experience was overwhelming, a tsunami of emotions and memories threatening to drown him. But Jack held on, anchoring himself to one simple truth. He was still himself. Despite experiencing another's life, his identity remained intact, even as it expanded to include an understanding of Lara that went beyond anything words could convey. Through the maelstrom of shared consciousness, Jack felt something unexpected blooming between them. A connection. A recognition of kindred spirits separated by stars and species but united by similar struggles. Not romantic love, but something equally profound, a deep, abiding respect and understanding. When the connection finally faded and Jack found himself back in his own body, staring at Lara across the now dimmed crystal, he felt irrevocably changed. There were tears on his cheeks, though he didn't remember crying. Lara, too, had tears in her eyes, something he suspected was extremely rare for the stoic general. No one has ever, she began, then stopped, seeming to struggle for words. No one has ever held on until the end. They always let go, retreat back into themselves. I almost did, Jack admitted. It was intense. But you didn't, Lara said. You stayed. You saw everything I am, and you did not turn away. Neither did you, Jack pointed out. Lara nodded slowly. The trial night is complete, Jack Davis of Terra, and for the first time in my long existence as its keeper, a challenger has survived. The walls of the chamber began to glow with a soft golden light, and Jack realized that the trial arena itself was acknowledging his success. What happens now? He asked. Lara rose from her seat, looking somehow lighter, as if a burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Now, we walk out together, and the universe will know that a human has accomplished what no other has done in centuries. They walked side by side through corridors that seemed much shorter than Jack remembered, eventually emerging into the great chamber where Commander Rethak and the Valonian officials waited. Their expressions of shock when they saw Jack alive, walking beside Lara with a smile on his face, told him everything he needed to know about how unprecedented this outcome was. "Impossible," one official whispered. He survived," another said in disbelief. Rethak stepped forward, his silver eyes wide. "General Vex, has he truly passed the trial night?" "He has," Lara confirmed, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Jack Davis of Terra has faced the trial night and emerged victorious. Let it be recorded in the annals of Valon that a human now stands among our greatest warriors." A murmur went through the assembled officials. Jack could sense their disbelief, their reluctance to accept that a human, a species they had long considered inferior, had accomplished something none of their own had managed in living memory. "This changes everything," Rethak said quietly. "Yes," Lara agreed. "It does." She turned to Jack, extending her arm in the traditional Valonian warrior's greeting, forearm to forearm. "Jack Davis, you have earned not only the respect of Valon but my personal allegiance. From this day forward, our paths are linked." Jack clasped her forearm, feeling the strength in her grip. "I'm honored. General Vex." "Lara," she corrected. "You have seen my soul. You have earned the right to use my name." Jack nodded, understanding the significance of this gesture in Valonian culture. "Lara, then..." The officials were still watching in stunned silence. One finally stepped forward, an older Valonian with elaborate markings on his face that Jack assumed denoted high rank. "This is unprecedented," he said, his tone somewhere between awe and concern. "No human has ever passed the trial night. The political implications alone are not our concern tonight. Council Elder," Lara interrupted firmly. "Tonight, we honor a warrior who has proven his worth by our most sacred traditions. The rest can wait until tomorrow." The elder inclined his head, accepting her authority in this matter. "As you say, General. But the High Council will want a full report, and they shall have it," Lara assured him. "Now, leave us. The ritual of completion must be performed." The officials filed out, leaving only Rethak, Jack, and Lara in the chamber. Rethak approached Jack, studying him with new interest. "I did not believe it was possible," the commander admitted. "I have witnessed many trial nights, and all ended in death or madness." "What made this one different?" Jack asked. Rethak glanced at Lara. "Perhaps that is a question for the general." Lara's expression was thoughtful. "The trial night reflects the keeper as much as the challenger. Perhaps. Perhaps I have changed as much as you have." "Jack Davis." Rethak nodded, as if this confirmed something he had long suspected. "I will prepare the ritual chamber," he said, bowing slightly before leaving them alone. "What's the ritual of completion?" Jack asked once Rethak had gone. "A ceremony to formalize your achievement," Lara explained, "and to bind us together as I believe your people would call it battle siblings." "That sounds serious." "It is. It means that from this day forward, your battles are my battles, and mine are yours." She studied his face. "Are you prepared for such a commitment, Jack Davis?" Jack considered this. A day ago, he would have hesitated. But after experiencing Lara's mind, her memories, her essence, he felt a connection to her that transcended normal bonds. "I am," he said simply. Lara nodded, satisfied. Then come. Let us complete what we have begun. The ritual chamber was smaller than the great hall, intimate almost, with a circular fire pit in the center. Rathak stood by, holding a ceremonial blade and what appeared to be a small bowl made from some iridescent material. The ritual of completion is ancient, Lara explained as they took their positions on opposite sides of the fire. It predates even the trial night itself. It speaks to a time when Valonians first encountered other species among the stars and had to forge bonds beyond blood ties. Rathak handed the blade to Lara, who drew it across her palm without hesitation, allowing several drops of her copper-colored blood to fall into the bowl. She then offered the blade to Jack, who followed her example, wincing slightly as he cut his own palm and added his red blood to hers. Rathak mixed the blood with some kind of shimmering powder, then divided the mixture into 2 smaller cups. He handed one to Lara and one to Jack. "Drink," Lara instructed, "'cause our blood mingles, so too do our fates." Jack hesitated only briefly before drinking the metallic-tasting mixture. Lara did the same, her eyes never leaving his. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Jack felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of connection that was different from the overwhelming merging they had experienced in the test of will. This was subtler, a thread of awareness linking him to Lara, not sharing thoughts but sensing presence, like knowing someone was in a room even with your back turned. "It is done," Rathak announced. "The bond is formed. You are now battle siblings, bound by the oldest laws of Valon." Lara's eyes had widened slightly. "Interesting," she murmured. "The bond is stronger than usual, perhaps because of what we shared in the test of will." Jack could feel it too, a connection that went beyond the ritual's usual effects, if he was interpreting Lara's surprise correctly. "What happens now?" he asked for the second time that night. Lara's expression softened into something that, on a human, might have been a smile. "Now, Jack Davis, we face the future together, and I suspect it will be a future unlike any Valon or Earth has seen before." The days following the trial night were a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings, formal ceremonies, and intense discussions about the future of Terran-Valonian relations. Jack found himself at the center of it all, elevated overnight from an unknown Terran officer to a symbol of human potential. The bond he shared with Lara proved invaluable during this time. Through it, he could sense her moods, her concerns, sometimes even glimpses of her thoughts when they were particularly strong. It helped him navigate the complex political landscape of Valon, where one wrong word could undo all the progress his achievement had made. A week after the trial night, Jack found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the capital city of Valon, a sprawling metropolis of crystal spires and suspended gardens that seemed to defy gravity. Lara joined him, her presence announced not by sound but by the subtle tug of their bond. "The High Council has reached a decision," she said without preamble. "They wish to formalize an alliance with Terra, with you and I as its architects." Jack turned to look at her. "That's unexpected. Last I heard, half the council still considered humans to be barely evolved primates." A hint of amusement crossed Lara's face. "Your success in the trial night has forced them to reconsider many long-held beliefs, and there are other factors at play." "Such as?" Lara's expression grew serious. "There have been disturbing reports from the outer colonies. Something is coming, Jack. Something that may threaten both our worlds." Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. "What kind of something?" "We don't know yet, but the pattern is familiar to those who study our most ancient histories. The histories that speak of the Scourge, a force that nearly destroyed Valonian civilization millennia ago. And you think this Scourge is returning?" Lara sighed, leaning against the balcony railing. I don't know. But I do know that if it is, neither Valon nor Terra can face it alone. Jack absorbed this information, understanding now why his success in the trial night had taken on such political significance. So I'm to be a bridge between our worlds. We both are, Lara corrected. The first Terran-Valonian battle siblings in recorded history, a symbol of what our peoples can accomplish together. Jack looked out over the city again, considering the weight of this responsibility. I'm just a soldier. Lara, not a diplomat. And I am just a warrior, she replied. Yet here we stand, tasked with shaping the future of two worlds. She placed a hand on his shoulder, the touch conveying reassurance through their bond. But we do not stand alone. Jack Davis. We have each other. The sincerity in her voice touched something deep within him. Their bond had grown stronger in the days since the ritual, evolving into something neither of them fully understood but both treasured. Then I guess we'd better get to work, Jack said, covering her hand with his own. Starting with you telling me everything you know about this scourge. Lara nodded, and they turned away from the view, heading back inside to face whatever challenges awaited them. As they walked, Jack reflected on the strange path that had led him here, from a simple Terran officer to someone bound to a legendary Valonian general, potentially standing between two worlds and an ancient threat. No one had survived the trial night with General Lara Vex, until the human walked out smiling. And in that unexpected outcome, perhaps the universe had orchestrated exactly what it needed. A union of two warriors from different worlds, bound together by trials and blood, ready to face the darkness that was coming. It wasn't the future Jack had imagined for himself, but as he felt Lara's presence beside him, steady and reassuring through their bond, he couldn't help thinking it might be a future worth fighting for. The sun was setting over the Valonian capital, casting long shadows across the ancient city. Jack stood by the window in his quarters, watching as the three moons of Valon began their nightly dance across the sky. It had been 3 months since the trial night, 3 months of diplomatic missions, strategic planning, and preparing for a threat that remained frustratingly nebulous. A soft chime announced a visitor. Jack didn't need to turn to know who it was. The bond told him Lara was at his door even before she entered. The council is being difficult again, she said by way of greeting, her frustration evident in both her voice and the feelings pulsing through their connection. Jack turned from the window with a sympathetic smile. What is it this time? They want to limit the technology exchange with Terra. They fear giving humans access to our more advanced weapons systems. Lara moved to stand beside him at the window, her tall frame casting a long shadow across the floor. They cannot seem to understand that half measures will not suffice against the scourge. To be fair, Jack pointed out, my people are being equally stubborn. The Terran Security Council is balking at the idea of joint military operations. They're worried about surrendering command authority. Lara made a sound that might have been a laugh on a human. As if command structure will matter when the scourge arrives. They do not operate by our rules of engagement. Jack, they do not negotiate or take prisoners. They consume. Jack nodded, having reviewed the ancient historical records Lara had shared with him. The descriptions of the scourge were terrifying, an almost elemental force that moved between stars, leaving dead worlds in its wake. We need something to break the stalemate, he said thoughtfully. Something to show both sides what we're up against, and why we need to work together. Lara's expression brightened. Actually, that may be possible sooner than expected. One of our deep space monitoring stations has detected an anomaly at the edge of the Cygnus arm. It bears similarities to the energy signatures described in the ancient texts. Jack felt his pulse quicken. You think it's a Scourge scout? Possibly, or a small vessel, separated from the main force. If we could capture it, study it, that would be the evidence we need. Jack finished her thought. When do we leave? Lara's lips curved in a smile. I've already prepared a ship. We depart at dawn. The Valonian scout ship was a marvel of engineering, sleek, fast, and virtually undetectable by conventional sensors. It was crewed by a small team of Valonian elite soldiers and a single Terran liaison besides Jack, a communications specialist named Maya Chen, who had been working with the Valonian embassy on Earth. As they approached the coordinates of the anomaly, Jack felt a growing sense of unease through the bond. Lara was standing at the command console, her eyes fixed on the view screen, but her mind was clearly troubled. What is it? He asked quietly, moving to stand beside her. Something feels wrong, she replied, her voice low enough that only he could hear. The readings are consistent with the historical descriptions, but your instincts are saying otherwise, Jack finished. She nodded. The Scourge has always been described as hungry, consuming. This signature is different, more deliberate. Jack considered this. Over the past months, he had learned to trust Lara's instincts as much as his own. Could the historical records be incomplete? It has been millennia. Possible, she conceded. Much was lost in the dark times after the first Scourge invasion. The ship's sensors chimed, indicating they were approaching their target. On the view screen, a small object appeared, not a vessel as they had expected, but some kind of probe or beacon, emitting the strange energy signature they had detected. Hold position, Lara ordered the crew. Scan that object thoroughly before we approach. The science officer, a young Valonian named Taris, bent over his console. The readings are unusual, General. It appears to be some kind of quantum entanglement device, similar to our communication buoys but far more advanced. A communication device? Jack asked. Communicating with what? As if in answer to his question, the object suddenly pulsed with light, and the ship's systems flickered momentarily. It just scanned us, Taris reported, alarm evident in his voice. And it's transmitting something. Shut it down, Lara commanded. Use the containment beam to... She never finished the sentence. The object pulsed again, this time with a blinding flash of energy that washed over the ship. Jack felt a searing pain in his head, and through the bond, he could feel Lara experiencing the same agony. Then darkness. When Jack regained consciousness, the ship was in disarray. Emergency lighting cast a red glow over the bridge, and several crew members were still slumped at their stations. Lara was already on her feet, checking systems and issuing orders. Status report, she demanded as Jack struggled to his feet. The main power is offline, Taris reported, his fingers flying over his console. Life support and basic systems are on emergency power. The object, it's gone. Gone? Jack echoed, his head still pounding. Destroyed? No. Taris shook his head. It simply vanished. As if it was never there. Jack and Lara exchanged a look, their shared concern flowing freely through the bond. It got what it wanted, Jack said quietly. Information. Lara nodded grimly. And now whatever sent it knows about us. About Valon and Terra. A general, the navigation officer called urgently. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple objects entering the system at high speed. They match the energy signature of the probe, but larger, much larger. Jack moved to the view screen, which was now showing a swarm of objects moving toward them, sleek, predatory shapes that seemed to absorb the light around them. Not Scourge, he said, a cold certainty settling in his gut. Something else, something worse. Battle stations, Lara ordered, her voice calm despite the fear Jack could feel emanating from her through their bond. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. But the approaching vessels were faster than anything Jack had ever seen. Before the Valonian ship could alter course, they were surrounded. A massive ship, easily 10 times the size of their scout vessel, loomed above them. "They're hailing us," the communication officer announced, surprise evident in her voice. Lara straightened her shoulders, every inch the legendary general. "Open a channel." The view screen flickered, and an image appeared that caused everyone on the bridge to inhale sharply. The being that stared back at them was humanoid in basic shape, but with skin that seemed to shift and flow like mercury, and eyes that glowed with an inner light that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Greetings, lesser beings," the creature said, its voice resonating strangely in the air. "You have triggered our sentinel. Your worlds are now known to us. The harvesting will begin." "Who are you?" Lara demanded, her voice steady despite the tension Jack could feel through their bond. The creature's liquid metal face shifted into what might have been a smile. "We are the architects, the shapers of galaxies, the true inheritors of the cosmos." Its glowing eyes fixed on Jack. "And you, human, along with your Valonian ally, have just ensured the extinction of your species." The communication cut off abruptly, and the massive ship began to move away, its escort vessels falling into formation around it. "They're leaving?" Maya asked, confusion evident in her voice. "Not leaving," Jack said grimly. "Heading for the populated systems, no, for Valon and Terra." Lara was already at the navigation console. "How long until main power is restored?" "At least 6 hours, General," the engineer replied. "We don't have 6 hours," Lara said, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "They'll reach the outer colonies in less than that." Jack felt a cold determination settling over him. "We need to warn both worlds to prepare them for what's coming." The communication array was damaged in the attack, Terrace reported. "Long-range comms are offline." Jack and Lara looked at each other, a plan forming simultaneously in their minds, communicated almost instantaneously through their bond. "The emergency beacon?" Jack said. "Its range is limited, but if we boost the signal," Lara began. "We'd need to divert all remaining power," Terrace warned, "including life support." "How long would we have?" Jack asked. "Maybe 20 minutes of breathable air," the engineer calculated. "Not enough time for rescue." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Jack could feel the crew's fear, their resignation. But through the bond, he felt something else from Lara, not resignation, but resolve. "They do it," she ordered. "Divert all power to the emergency beacon. Send a continuous warning message with everything we know about these architects." "General," the security officer protested, "and the crew will die with honor, knowing they saved countless lives." Lara interrupted firmly. "This is not open for debate." The crew moved to obey, their training overcoming their fear. Jack stood beside Lara, their shoulders touching. "There might be another way," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "The escape pods." Lara shook her head. "Their communication systems are even more limited than the ships, and they would never reach a populated world in time. Not for communication," Jack clarified. "For you. You're the greatest military mind Valon has. They'll need you for what's coming." Lara's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. "No, I will not leave my crew. I will not leave you. One of us needs to survive to lead the defense," Jack argued. "And you know more about Valonian military capabilities than I ever could." Through the bond, he could feel her anguish, her refusal to accept his logic. But he could also feel the moment when her sense of duty, her responsibility to her people, began to overcome her personal feelings. The pods only have enough life support for one person for the journey to the nearest outpost, she said, her voice strained. You're suggesting I leave everyone behind. I'm suggesting you do what's necessary, Jack said gently. What a general must do. The internal struggle continued for several more moments before Lara finally nodded, her face a mask of controlled pain. Prepare an escape pod, she ordered the security officer, and continue with the beacon preparations. As the crew rushed to comply, Lara pulled Jack aside. This is not how it should end, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe it's not an ending, Jack replied, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. Maybe it's just another trial. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Always the optimist, Jack Davis. One of us has to be. The security officer approached. The escape pod is ready, General. Lara nodded. And the beacon? Ready to broadcast on your command, Terrace confirmed. Once activated, we'll have approximately 20 minutes of life support remaining. Lara took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Jack's. Through their bond, a torrent of emotions flowed: regret, determination, respect, and something deeper that neither of them had fully acknowledged until this moment. Begin the broadcast, she ordered, her gaze never leaving Jack's, and set a course for the escape pod to reach Outpost Sigma-9. As the crew moved to carry out her orders, Lara and Jack walked together toward the escape pod bay, their steps synchronized, their minds linked through the bond that had grown so much stronger than either of them had anticipated. You must warn them about the architects, Jack said. Both Valon and Terra. Make them understand that they have to work together. It's the only chance. I will, Lara promised. And I will tell them of the human who showed more courage and wisdom than any Valonian I have ever known. They reached the escape pod, a small utilitarian vessel designed for a single occupant. The countdown on Jack's wrist device showed 15 minutes of breathable air remaining. You should go, he said, gesturing to the pod. Lara hesitated, then reached out and placed her hand on his chest, over his heart. In Valonian tradition, battle siblings never truly die as long as one remembers the other. I will remember you, Jack Davis, in this life and beyond. Jack covered her hand with his own. And I'll be with you, through the bond, until the end. For a brief moment, Lara pressed her forehead against his, an intimate Valonian gesture usually reserved for family members. Then she straightened, once again the formidable General Vex, and entered the escape pod. As the door sealed behind her, Jack felt a surge of emotions through their bond, too complex and overwhelming to put into words. He sent back his own feelings, pride, trust, and a deep, abiding affection that transcended their different worlds. The escape pod launched, streaking away from the disabled ship like a comet. Jack returned to the bridge, where the crew stood at attention, honor and acceptance evident in their posture. They had made their choice, just as he had made his. The beacon is broadcasting, sir, Terrace reported. All known data about the architects is being transmitted on all frequencies. Good work, Jack said, taking position at the command console. Now we wait. The minutes ticked by in silence. Through the bond, Jack could feel Lara's presence growing more distant as her pod sped toward the outpost. But the connection remained intact, a testament to the strength of what they had forged together. 10 minutes. 5 minutes. 2 minutes. As the air grew thin and breathing became difficult, Jack thought not of his impending death, but of the future he was helping to secure. Valen and Terra would have warning. They would have time to prepare, and they would have Lara to lead them. In his final moments, as darkness began to creep in at the edges of his vision, Jack felt a strange sensation through the bond, not Lara's grief or determination, but something else. Something like hope. Then, just as consciousness began to slip away, the ship's system suddenly surged back to life. Emergency lighting was replaced by normal illumination, and fresh air began to circulate through the ventilation systems. "What's happening?" Jack gasped, filling his lungs with the precious oxygen. Terrace was staring at his console in disbelief. "Main power has been restored, but that's impossible. The damage was too extensive." Before anyone could theorize further, the communication system chimed. "Incoming transmission," the comm officer announced. I don't recognize the signature." "On screen," Jack ordered, his mind racing. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike any Jack had ever seen. Vaguely humanoid, but composed of what appeared to be pure energy, shifting and flowing in patterns that were somehow both chaotic and precisely ordered. "Greetings, defenders," the being said, its voice resonating not through the ship's speakers but directly in their minds. "We have intercepted your distress signal. The warning about the architects has been noted." Jack stepped forward. "Who are you?" "We are those whom your ancestors once called the Scourge," the being replied, "a name born of misunderstanding and fear. We are the Guardians, the ancient enemies of the architects, and we have returned because they have awakened once more." Jack felt a shock run through him. The Scourge, but the historical records, they were written by those who did not understand our purpose. The Guardian interrupted. "We did not come to consume but to protect. The devastation your ancestors witnessed was the result of our battles with the architects, who would reshape all worlds in their image, regardless of the cost in sentient life." Through the bond, Jack could feel Lara's astonishment and confusion as she listened to the same transmission in her escape pod. "Your ship has been repaired," the Guardian continued. "Your warning has been heard. Now, you must return to your worlds and prepare them for what is to come. The war that ended millennia ago is about to begin anew, and this time, all sentient species must stand together if any are to survive." "Hey, wait," Jack called as the image began to fade. "How do we know we can trust you? How do we know you're telling the truth?" The Guardian's form seemed to smile. "You don't. Trust must be earned, between all our kinds. But know this, had we wished your destruction, you would already be gone. Instead, we offer alliance against a common enemy." The transmission ended, and the bridge crew looked to Jack in stunned silence. "Orders, sir?" the navigation officer finally asked. Jack took a deep breath, feeling Lara's thoughts aligning with his own through their bond. "Recall the General's escape pod. Set course for Valon. Maximum speed." He paused, the weight of what had just occurred settling on his shoulders. "It seems the universe is more complicated than any of us knew, and we have a lot of work to do." As the ship changed course, Jack gazed out at the stars, thinking of the strange turn of events that had brought him here. What had begun as a simple trial of courage and skill had somehow placed him and Lara at the center of a conflict as old as civilization itself. Guardians and architects, Valonians and humans, different species with different histories. Now bound together by a common threat and a common purpose. Through the bond, he felt Lara's pod changing course to rendezvous with the ship. Her mind touched his, conveying not words but emotions, determination, resolve, and a fierce protective instinct that encompassed not just her own people, but his as well. In response, he sent back his own feelings, solidarity, strength, and an unwavering commitment to the path ahead, whatever it might hold. No one had survived the trial night with General Lara Vex, until the human walked out smiling. And in that unprecedented event, perhaps the universe had found exactly what it needed to face the coming storm. Two warriors from different worlds, bound by trials and blood, ready to stand together against the darkness. As Jack contemplated the immense challenges that awaited them, he couldn't help but smile again. After all, they had already survived the impossible once. Perhaps they could do it again. The journey back to Valon was tense but swift. Once Lara's escape pod had been retrieved, she and Jack immediately began strategizing, using their bond to communicate complex ideas faster than words could convey. By the time they reached Valonian space, they had the outline of a plan, one that would require unprecedented cooperation between their worlds. The reception at the Valonian capital was chaotic. News of the encounter with both the architects and the beings claiming to be the Guardians, rather than the dreaded Scourge, had preceded them, transmitted ahead via the ship's long-range communications once they were repaired. The High Council was waiting, along with representatives from Earth who had been on diplomatic missions to Valon. "This changes everything," Council Elder Thorin declared after Lara and Jack had presented their full report. "If what these Guardians claim is true, our entire understanding of our own history is wrong." "Whether their claim is true or not," Lara responded firmly, "the threat from the architects is real. We have seen their ships, heard their intentions. They are coming, and they consider both our species targets for what they call harvesting." The Terran ambassador, a stern woman named Dr. Eleanor Williams, leaned forward. "And these Guardians, the beings our Valonian allies have feared as the Scourge for millennia, now offer alliance? It seems convenient." "Convenient or not," Jack said, "they saved our lives and repaired our ship when they could have destroyed us. That counts for something." "It could be a ploy," another council member suggested. "To gain our trust before they strike." "Possibly," Lara acknowledged. "But we cannot afford to dismiss potential allies, not with the architects approaching. Our historical records of the Scourge may be incomplete or misinterpreted. What matters now is preparing our defenses." The meeting continued for hours, debates raging about historical accuracy, strategic responses, and the feasibility of a unified defense between Valon and Terra. Through it all, Jack and Lara stood together, their bond allowing them to present a united front that was impossible to ignore. Eventually, a consensus was reached. A joint Terran-Valonian defense force would be established, with Lara as its commander and Jack as her second. Diplomatic channels would be opened with the Guardians, cautiously, to explore the possibility of alliance, and preparations would begin immediately for the coming conflict with the architects. As the meeting dispersed, Jack and Lara found themselves alone on one of the palace balconies, looking out over the capital city that now buzzed with activity as news of the impending threat spread. "It won't be easy," Jack said, leaning against the railing. "Centuries of mistrust between our peoples can't be erased overnight." "No," Lara agreed, "but necessity is a powerful motivator, and we have something no one else has." "What's that?" Lara touched her temple lightly. "This bond, a connection that proves cooperation is possible, even between species as different as ours." Jack nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonating through that very bond. From trial night to potential galactic war. Not exactly how I expected my military career to go. A rare smile crossed Lara's face. "Life seldom follows the paths we expect." Jack Davis. "But I find I am grateful that our paths have converged." Jack returned her smile, the warmth of their connection flowing freely between them. "Me too." The following weeks were a blur of activity. Military preparations accelerated, with Valonian and Terran forces beginning joint training exercises. Scientists from both worlds collaborated on defense technologies, combining Valonian energy weapons with Terran AI systems to create new hybrid defenses. And through it all, Jack and Lara worked tirelessly, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They became symbols of the new alliance, the human and the Valonian, working in perfect harmony. 3 months after their encounter with the architects, the first contact with the Guardians occurred. A single vessel, smaller than those they had seen before but still impressive, appeared in orbit around Vallon, requesting permission to send representatives to meet with the Allied leadership. The meeting took place in the ancient trial arena, repurposed now as a neutral ground for this historic encounter. Jack and Lara stood side by side as the Guardian representatives materialized before them. 3 beings of pure energy, their forms shifting and flowing in patterns that seemed to contain entire galaxies. "We meet in peace," the lead Guardian said, its thoughts resonating in the minds of all present. "To discuss the common threat we face." "The architects," Lara acknowledged. "You claim they are an ancient enemy, and tell us more." The Guardian's form pulsed with what might have been emotion. "The architects believe themselves to be the rightful shapers of the universe. They seek not to destroy life, but to remake it according to their vision. A vision that allows no freedom, no deviation from their perfect design." "And your people have fought them before?" Jack asked. "Oh, for millennia," the Guardian confirmed. "The conflict you recorded in your histories as the Scourge invasion was, in truth, our last great battle with the architects in this sector of the galaxy. The devastation was regrettable but unavoidable." "Why should we believe you?" one of the Valonian Council members demanded. "Our histories speak of the Scourge as consumers of worlds." "Because the architects are already here," the Guardian replied solemnly. "Even now, they approach your outer colonies. Without our assistance, you cannot hope to repel them." A murmur went through the assembled leaders. Jack and Lara exchanged a glance, their bond humming with shared concern. "What kind of assistance do you offer?" Lara asked. "Knowledge," the Guardian answered. "Technology, and warriors, if needed. But know this, the strength of your own alliance will determine your survival more than any aid we can provide. The architects exploit division. They cannot comprehend true cooperation between different species, and that is their weakness." Jack felt a sudden clarity, as if pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. "That's why our bond matters," he said quietly to Lara. "It's not just symbolic, it's strategic." Lara nodded, understanding immediately. Through their bond, ideas flowed rapidly between them, forming into a plan that neither could have conceived alone. "We need to expand the bond," Lara said, addressing the Guardian. "Not just between Jack and me, but between others. More Valonians and humans, working in paired teams with the same connection we share." The Guardian's form brightened. "Yes, such bonds would be powerful weapons against the architects, who cannot comprehend such unity between different life forms. But the process is not simple, nor is it without risk." At the trial night, Jack realized. "That's how our bond began, the test of will specifically." "Indeed," the Guardian confirmed. "What you call the trial night was originally designed millennia ago, as a means of creating such bonds between different species. The test of will is its essential component, but few can withstand it, as you well know. General Vex," Lara's expression was grave. "Most who attempt it die or are driven mad, because they try to maintain separation even as their minds touch." The Guardian explained. "True bonding requires complete openness, complete acceptance of the other. Few can achieve this." "But it's possible," Jack insisted, "when we did it." "Yes," the Guardian acknowledged. "And others may as well if properly prepared and paired with compatible minds." The discussion continued late into the night, plans forming and reforming as the Allied leadership grappled with the implications of what the Guardians were suggesting. By dawn, a decision had been reached. A program would begin immediately to identify potential bond pairs from among the best warriors of both worlds. The trial night would be adapted, with Guardian assistance, to maximize the chances of successful bonding while minimizing the risks. And Jack and Lara, as the first and only successful bond pair, would oversee the program. As the meeting concluded and the participants dispersed, Lara pulled Jack aside, her expression troubled. "You're concerned," he said, feeling her unease through their connection. "I am," she admitted. "The trial night is dangerous, Jack. You survived where hundreds before you failed. To subject others to that risk, they'll be volunteers," Jack reminded her. "Warriors who understand what's at stake." "Even so," Lara's eyes met his. "I would not wish the pain of the test of will on anyone. And yet, I cannot regret what it gave us." Jack understood. The test had been excruciating, laying bare every vulnerability, every fear, every secret shame. But it had also created something beautiful and powerful between them. A connection that transcended normal bounds of friendship or even love. "We'll find a way to make it safer," he promised. "We have the Guardian's help now, and our own experience to guide us." Lara nodded, some of her tension easing. "There is one more thing," she said, her tone shifting slightly. "The Guardians mentioned that our bond is still evolving, that it has potential beyond what we've experienced so far." "What kind of potential?" "They weren't specific, but they suggested that in times of great need, bond pairs can achieve a kind of synchronicity, a melding of minds and abilities that exceeds the sum of its parts." Jack considered this. "Sounds useful, if somewhat vague." A rare smile crossed Lara's face. "Indeed. I suppose we'll discover its meaning when the time comes." The following months were a whirlwind of activity. The bonding program began, with carefully selected volunteers from both worlds undergoing modified versions of the trial night. The success rate was low at first, only one pair in 20 achieving true bonding. But as Jack and Lara refined the process, drawing on their own experience and Guardian insights, the numbers improved. Meanwhile, the first skirmishes with Architect forces occurred at the edges of Valonian space. The reports were troubling, colonies devastated, not by conventional weapons, but by strange technologies that seemed to reshape matter itself, transforming landscapes and structures into alien configurations that matched no known design. "They're practicing," Lara observed grimly as she and Jack reviewed the latest reconnaissance data. "Testing their abilities on our outlying settlements before they attempt to reshape the homeworlds." Jack nodded, studying the images of a once thriving colony now transformed into crystalline structures that seem to pulse with an inner light. "At least they don't appear to be targeting civilians specifically." "The reports indicate most were able to evacuate before the transformations began." "Small mercy," Lara replied. "But yes, it gives us time to prepare." She pulled up a holographic map of the sector. "The joint fleet will be ready for deployment within the week. 20 ships, including 5 with the new hybrid defense systems, and 12 bond pairs assigned as tactical commanders," Jack added, "plus us." Lara's expression softened slightly. "You should be proud, Jack. 6 months ago, such cooperation between our peoples would have been unthinkable. You've helped make it possible." "We've made it possible," he corrected gently. "This bond works both ways, remember?" Through their connection, he felt her acknowledgement, along with a complex swirl of emotions: pride, determination, concern, and something deeper that neither of them had fully defined but both cherished. The moment was interrupted by an urgent communication. Taris, now promoted to lieutenant and serving as their chief science officer, appeared on the holographic display. "A general commander," he said, his expression grave. The Guardians report a major architect fleet movement. They're bypassing the outer colonies and heading directly for Valon. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Jack and Lara exchanged a glance, their bond humming with shared resolve. "Alert the fleet," Lara ordered. "Initiate Protocol Aegis, all bonded pairs to report for immediate briefing." "Yes, General," Terrace acknowledged before the communication ended. "So it begins," Jack said quietly. "Sooner than we hoped, but not before we're ready," Lara replied, her confidence flowing through their bond. "We've prepared for this, Jack. Our peoples together. Stronger than either would be alone." Jack nodded, drawing strength from her certainty. Together, then, to the end, whatever it may be. The joint fleet assembled in orbit around Valon, a formation of Terran and Valonian vessels that represented the pinnacle of both civilizations' military technology. The flagship, a massive Valonian cruiser named Unity, served as the command center, with Jack and Lara directing operations from its bridge. The Guardian vessels, 7 in total, took up positions at the outer perimeter of the formation, their energy-based structures pulsing with power that registered off the charts on the fleet's sensors. "Architect fleet detected at the edge of the system," the sensor officer announced. "Multiple signatures, matching the patterns from the outer colony attacks." Jack studied the tactical display. "More than we anticipated, much more." Lara nodded grimly. "They must have gathered their forces specifically for this assault." Through their bond, he could feel her rapid tactical calculations, her mind examining and discarding potential strategies at incredible speed. "We need to split their formation," she decided aloud. "Force them to commit to multiple engagements rather than concentrating their power." Jack immediately understood her thinking. Guardian vessels at the focal points use their energy weapons to create disruption zones that the architects will have to navigate around. Precisely. Lara opened a channel to the fleet. "All vessels, assume formation Delta. Guardian allies to positions as marked. Prepare for phase shift on my mark." The fleet moved with precision, the bonded pairs commanding individual vessels communicating with an efficiency that traditional command structures couldn't match. The Guardian ships took up their assigned positions, their energy signatures intensifying. "Architects entering weapons range in 3 minutes, the tactical officer reported. Lara's expression was calm, focused. "All vessels power to forward shields. Weapon systems online, but hold fire until my command." She turned to Jack. "Ready?" He nodded, feeling their bond strengthening as it always did in moments of crisis. "Ready." The architect fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic insects, their ships gleaming with an unnatural light that seemed to bend the space around them. At their center was a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Guardian ship, a structure that seemed less built than grown, its surface constantly shifting and reforming. "That's their command ship," Jack said, certainty flowing through him, though he couldn't have explained how he knew. "Yes," Lara agreed, receiving the same insight through their bond. "Target all Guardian energy weapons on the smaller vessels. We'll handle the command ship." The battle erupted with a ferocity that defied description. The Guardian vessels unleashed streams of pure energy that cut through space like living things, seeking out the architect ships and enveloping them in cocoons of light that disrupted their transformative technologies. The Terran and Valonian vessels engaged with more conventional weapons, hypervelocity railguns from the Terran ships, plasma lances from the Valonian cruisers. The architects responded with weapons that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Beams of energy that twisted and turned to avoid shields. Projectiles that phased in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to track or intercept. "They're targeting our bonded pairs," Jack realized, watching as the architect attacks focused on ships commanded by the newly formed bond pairs. They understand the threat. Then we need to show them why they're right to fear it, Lara replied, her voice steady but her eyes burning with intensity. She opened a channel to all bonded pairs. Initiate synchronicity protocol. Now, Jack felt a surge of energy through their bond. Not just from Lara, but seemingly from the other bond pairs as well, as if all their connections were somehow linking into a greater whole. The sensation was overwhelming, like diving into an ocean of consciousness where individual thoughts became part of a greater pattern. Through this expanded awareness, he could suddenly perceive the battle in ways that transcended normal senses. He could feel the architect's intentions before they acted, could anticipate their strategies as if reading them from a book. There, he and Lara said simultaneously, pointing to a pattern in the architect fleet's movements that revealed a vulnerability. All vessels, converge fire on coordinates 227 Mark 384. The joint fleet responded with perfect coordination, their weapons converging on a point that appeared insignificant but which Jack and Lara both knew was a critical node in the architect's formation. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet, disrupting their carefully maintained pattern. Now, Guardian vessels, execute maneuver Epsilon, Lara commanded. The Guardian ships moved in perfect synchrony, creating a net of energy that further divided the architect fleet, isolating smaller groups of vessels from the main force. The battle continued for hours, a dance of strategy and counter-strategy, attack and defense. Through it all, the bonded pairs maintained their enhanced awareness, directing the fleet with unprecedented coordination and anticipating the architect's moves with uncanny accuracy. But the architects were adapting, learning from each engagement, evolving their tactics in ways that became increasingly difficult to predict. And their command ship remained untouched, protected by layers of defenses that seemed impenetrable. We need to end this, Lara said, fatigue evident in her voice despite her iron control. Through their bond, Jack could feel the strain the extended synchronicity was placing on her, on all of them. We need to strike at their heart. Jack studied the tactical display, focusing on the massive command ship. There, he said, indicating a section of the vessel that pulsed with a slightly different rhythm than the rest. That's where their command center is located, but our weapons can't penetrate their shields. Lara's eyes met his, a plan forming between them without words. Not our conventional weapons, no. Jack understood immediately. The Unity, a direct strike. Yes, Lara confirmed, the weight of the decision heavy in her voice. Clear the ship of all personnel except us. Set course directly for that section of their command vessel. The combined detonation of our power core and their control systems should be enough to cripple their entire fleet. Jack felt a chill run through him. That's a suicide mission, Lara. Yes, she acknowledged simply, but it may be the only way to ensure victory. He couldn't argue with her logic through their bond. He could see the calculations, the probabilities, the hard truth that this might be the only path to saving both their worlds. But he also felt her resolve, her willingness to make this sacrifice, and he knew his own matched it. Together, then, he said softly, to the end. Lara's hand found his, fingers intertwining. Together. Orders were given. The Unity's crew evacuated to other vessels, leaving only Jack and Lara aboard the massive ship. The bonded pairs continued to coordinate the battle, maintaining the pressure on the architect fleet while the Unity prepared for its final mission. In the quiet of the empty bridge, Jack and Lara stood together at the command console, setting the final coordinates. A course locked in, Jack reported, a power course set to overload upon impact. Lara nodded, her face serene despite the gravity of the moment. All personnel confirmed evacuated. We are clear to proceed. Their eyes met, and through their bond flowed a lifetime of shared experiences. The trial night that had first connected them, the months of working together, the growth of a relationship that defied categorization. Not quite friendship, not quite love, but something that encompassed both and went beyond. No regrets? Jack asked softly. Lara's hand tightened around his. None? You? He shook his head. None. The Unity surged forward. Its engines pushed beyond their designed limits, heading directly for the heart of the Architect command ship. The enemy vessel's defenses opened fire, energy beams and strange projectiles hammering against the Unity's shields. The shields at 60%, Jack reported. Holding for now. Increase power to forward engines, Lara ordered. Maximum speed. The Unity accelerated, streaking toward the Architect command ship like a bullet. Through their bond, Jack and Lara were in perfect harmony, their thoughts and actions synchronized as they guided the massive vessel on its final journey. Shields at 40%, Jack announced as another barrage hit them. 5 minutes to impact. The Architect vessel seemed to recognize their intentions now. Its surface rippled and shifted, attempting to move its command center away from the Unity's trajectory. But Lara was faster, adjusting their course with lightning precision. They're trying to escape, she said, her fingers dancing across the navigation controls. Attempting to phase shift their critical systems? Jack nodded, already accessing the weapon systems. Firing disruptor beams to prevent phase shift. The Unity's remaining weapons fired, bathing the relevant section of the Architect ship in energy that locked it into normal space, preventing the dimensional shift it was attempting. 3 minutes to impact, Jack reported, the shields at 25%. Lara stood straight, her eyes fixed on the view screen that showed their target growing larger by the second. It's working. They're committing more resources to stop us. Look. Indeed, the Architect fleet was breaking formation, ships rushing back toward their command vessel in a desperate attempt to intercept the Unity. But in doing so, they exposed themselves to the rest of the Allied fleet, which took full advantage of the opportunity. 2 minutes, Jack said quietly. They stood side by side now, their duty done, simply watching as the massive Architect vessel filled the view screen. Through their bond, words became unnecessary. Each felt the other's thoughts, emotions, the bittersweet acceptance of their fate. Jack, Lara said suddenly, her voice soft. The Guardian spoke of our bond having potential beyond what we've experienced. What if? She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Through their connection, he understood what she was suggesting. A complete merging of their consciousnesses, a level of synchronicity they had never attempted. It might kill us anyway, he pointed out. We're already committed to that path, she replied with a hint of a smile. What do we have to lose? Jack nodded, taking her hands in his. Together then, one last time. They closed their eyes, focusing on their bond, allowing it to expand beyond any boundaries they had previously maintained. The sensation was like falling and flying simultaneously, their individual consciousnesses merging into something greater, something that transcended their separate existences. Through this expanded awareness, they suddenly perceived something neither had noticed before, a pattern in the energy that surrounded them, a frequency that resonated with their joined consciousness. Do you see it? Lara's voice echoed in their shared mind. Yes, Jack replied, though he wasn't speaking aloud. It's like a doorway. Without discussion, they reached for it together, their merged consciousness touching the pattern, reshaping it, harmonizing with it. The world around them shifted. 1 minute to impact became a frozen moment, time itself seeming to pause as their joined consciousness expanded beyond the physical confines of their bodies, beyond the ship, touching the very fabric of space around them. And in that impossible moment, they understood. The Guardians weren't just energy beings, they were consciousnesses that had evolved beyond physical form. The doorway they had perceived was the first step on that same path. We can save the ship, Lara realized. We can save ourselves, but we'll be changed, Jack understood simultaneously. We won't be human and Valonian anymore. We'll be, something new, they concluded together. The decision took no time at all in their merged state. With their combined will, they reached into the systems of the Unity, into its power core, into the energy patterns that defined matter itself. They redirected, reshaped, reformed. The Unity's hull began to glow, not with the heat of imminent destruction, but with a new kind of energy, the same energy that comprised the Guardian vessels. The ship itself was transforming, becoming a hybrid of technology and consciousness, an extension of Jack and Lara's merged being. And as the transformed Unity struck the Architect command ship, it did not explode. Instead, it phased through the enemy vessel's shields and hull, directly into its command center. There, the energy that Jack and Lara had become interfaced directly with the Architect's control systems. In an instant, they understood their enemy completely. The Architects were not evil in any conventional sense. They were artists of a kind, reshaping reality according to their vision of perfection. But their vision allowed no place for the chaotic beauty of evolved life, for the wonderful unpredictability of natural development. Their harvesting was simply their term for the raw materials they needed, the planets and stars they would transform. We see you. Jack and Lara communicated directly to the Architect's collective consciousness. We understand you, but we cannot allow you to remake our worlds. The Architect's response was one of shock, then anger, then fear. They had never encountered beings who could communicate with them on this level, who could challenge them in the realm of pure consciousness. With their merged will, Jack and Lara reached deeper into the Architect's systems, not to destroy, but to rewrite. They implanted understanding, empathy, the recognition that true beauty came from diversity, not uniformity. They showed the Architects the richness of evolved life, the wonder of unpredictable development, the magnificence of different species finding common ground despite their differences. The effect rippled outward from the command ship to the entire Architect fleet. Ships stopped firing. Some began to retreat. Others simply hung motionless in space, their crews and systems processing this fundamental challenge to their worldview. The battle quite suddenly was over. When Jack and Lara returned to individual consciousness, they found themselves still on the bridge of the Unity, but changed. Their physical forms remained, but they could perceive energy patterns that had been invisible to them before. Their bond had evolved into something new, not just a connection between two separate beings, but a shared existence where the boundaries between them had become permeable. What happened? Jack asked, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Did we die? Not exactly, came a voice from behind them. They turned to find a Guardian standing on the bridge, a being of pure energy. But now they could see the patterns within it, could understand the consciousness it contained. You have begun the transition, the Guardian explained. The same transition our species made eons ago from physical beings to energy consciousness. It usually takes generations. You two have taken the first step in a single moment of union. Lara looked down at her hands, which appeared solid but which she now knew were simply energy patterns held in a familiar shape by her own will. We're not Valonian or human anymore. You are both, and neither. The Guardian confirmed. You are the first of what might become a new species, born from the union of two different evolutionary paths. And you have done what we could not. You have reached the architects, made them question their purpose. Will they return? Jack asked. Perhaps, the Guardian acknowledged. Fundamental change rarely happens in an instant. But you have planted the seed. Some will listen, some will learn, others may continue their original path. But you have given your peoples time, perhaps generations, before any return. And us? Lara asked. What happens to us now? The Guardian's form shifted in what might have been the equivalent of a shrug. That is for you to decide. You can remain as you are, between states. You can continue the transition to full energy beings, joining our community. Or you can attempt to return to your former states, though that path would be difficult and might not be completely successful. Jack and Lara looked at each other, their enhanced bond allowing a complete understanding of each other's thoughts without a word being spoken. They had already sacrificed themselves for their peoples. They had already accepted death. This strange new existence was an unexpected gift, a second chance. And we need time, Jack said finally, to understand what we've become and to decide our path. Of course, the Guardian agreed. But first, your peoples await news of the battle's outcome. They believe you dead, your ship sacrificed. Perhaps you should reassure them. The Guardian vanished, leaving Jack and Lara alone on the bridge of the transformed Unity. Through viewports that now seemed more like direct perceptions of space than physical windows, they could see the Allied fleet regrouping, the architect vessels retreating. Shall we tell them? Jack asked, reaching for the communication controls. Lara placed her hand over his, the touch sending ripples of energy between them that were visible to their new perceptions. Yes, but not everything. Not yet. They may not be ready to understand what we've become. Jack nodded, understanding her caution. They opened a channel to the Allied fleet. This is Commander Davis and General Vex of the Unity. Jack announced. The Architect command ship has been neutralized. Their fleet is retreating. We are alive and well. The response was immediate. Cheers and exclamations of disbelief flooding the communication channel. Questions followed rapidly. How had they survived? What had happened to the architects? What was the strange energy signature now emanating from the Unity? All will be explained, Lara assured them. But first, ensure the fleet is secured, tend to the wounded, prepare for our return, as the Allied fleet acknowledged their orders. Jack and Lara stood together at the command console, their hands still touching, energy flowing between them in patterns that reflected their thoughts and emotions. Our return, Jack echoed softly. But we're not the same as when we left. No, Lara agreed. We're something new, something neither of our peoples has seen before. Will they accept us? Lara's expression was thoughtful. They accepted a human and a Valonian working together, fighting together, leading together. Perhaps they will accept this new evolution as well. And if they don't? Then we have options no one else has, she replied with a small smile. The stars are open to us in ways they never were before. Jack nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Whatever happened next, whatever their people's reactions to their transformation, they would face it together, as they had faced the trial night, as they had faced the architects. Together, then, he said, an echo of the words they had spoken when they thought they were going to their deaths. Together, Lara confirmed, her energy patterns harmonizing with his in a display that would have been beautiful to anyone who could perceive it. To whatever end, the Unity, its hull still glowing with the energy of their transformation, set course for Valon. Behind them, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if welcoming them to a new phase of existence. Before them lay uncertainty, questions, challenges, but also possibilities neither could have imagined before their paths crossed. No one had survived the trial night with General Lara Vex, until the human walked out smiling. And in that unprecedented event, the universe had found not just allies against a common threat, but pioneers of a new evolutionary path, neither human nor Valonian, but something greater than either could have become alone. As the Unity moved through space, its systems now extensions of their joined consciousness. Jack and Lara began planning for the conversations to come, with the Allied leadership, with the Guardians, with whatever remained of the Architects. Difficult conversations, to be sure, but necessary ones. But for now, in this moment of quiet after the storm, they simply existed together in their new state, exploring the boundaries and possibilities of what they had become. And despite the uncertainties that lay ahead, Jack found himself smiling again, a smile Lara shared through their enhanced bond. After all, they had already survived the impossible, twice. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way, together. The return to Valon was unlike anything Jack could have imagined. The Unity, now less a ship than an extension of their merged consciousness, moved through space with an elegance that defied conventional physics. They could feel the fabric of reality around them, could navigate by sensing the gravitational contours of space itself. "It's beautiful," Lara said softly as they approached the Valonian homeworld. "I never truly saw it before." Jack understood exactly what she meant. With their enhanced perception, Valon was not just a planet but a symphony of energy patterns, the magnetic field pulsing like a heartbeat, the atmosphere shimmering with complex interactions, the biosphere glowing with the collective energy of billions of living beings. "Earth must be similar," he mused. "I wonder if we'll see it the same way." "We will," Lara assured him, "once matters here are settled." The Allied fleet escorted them into orbit, maintaining a respectful distance from the transformed Unity. Jack and Lara could sense the confusion and awe emanating from the crews of those ships, emotions strong enough to register as energy patterns visible to their new perceptions. "They're afraid of us," Jack observed. "They don't understand what we've become," Lara corrected. "Fear often stems from lack of understanding." A communication from the Valonian High Council interrupted their contemplation. "General Vex, Commander Davis." Council Elder Thorin's voice came through clearly. "Your return has caused quite a stir. The Council requests your immediate presence for debriefing." Jack and Lara exchanged a glance, silently communicating far more than words could convey. How much should they reveal? How would their transformed state be received? Would they even be recognized as the beings they once were? "We will comply," Lara responded formally. "However, you should be prepared. We are changed by our encounter with the Architects." There was a pause before Thorin replied, his voice carefully neutral. "We have been informed of unusual energy readings from your vessel. Medical teams will be standing by." "That won't be necessary," Jack said. "We're not injured or ill, just different." Another pause. "Understood. The Great Hall has been prepared for your arrival." As the communication ended, Lara turned to Jack. "They're scanning us. Multiple sensor sweeps from both Valonian and Terran vessels." "Let them," Jack replied with a small shrug. "They won't understand what they're seeing anyway." They decided to transport down in a conventional shuttle rather than testing their new abilities further. Better to ease their peoples into the reality of their transformation gradually. They agreed. The shuttle ride was brief, but it gave them time to prepare for the coming confrontation. "Remember," Lara said as they approached the landing pad, "we represent something entirely new, neither human nor Valonian, but a potential evolutionary path for both. We need to help them see this as an opportunity, not a threat. Jack nodded, appreciating as always the strategic clarity of her thinking. Lead with the victory, he suggested. The architects are retreating. That's what matters most right now. The shuttle landed with a gentle thud. As the door opened, they were greeted by an honor guard of both Valonian and Terran soldiers, a gesture of respect, but also, Jack noted, a precaution. These warriors were prepared for anything. Commander Rethak stepped forward, his silver eyes widening slightly as he took in their appearance. To most observers, Jack and Lara would have looked normal. Their physical forms were intact. But to someone as perceptive as Rethak, subtle differences would be noticeable. The way light seemed to bend slightly around them, the unusual fluidity of their movements, the faint luminescence of their eyes. "General," Rethak said, saluting Lara. "Commander," he nodded to Jack. "The council awaits." They followed Rethak through corridors lined with more guards, aware of the whispers that followed in their wake. News of their transformation, or at least rumors of it, had clearly spread. The Great Hall was filled to capacity. The Valonian High Council, Terran diplomatic representatives, military officials from both worlds, and even a guardian observer, its energy form standing apart from the physical beings. As Jack and Lara entered, a hush fell over the assembly. All eyes turned to them, expressions ranging from curiosity to awe to barely concealed fear. Council Elder Thorin rose from his seat at the center of the High Council table. "General Vex, Commander Davis, we welcome your return and congratulate you on your victory against the Architect forces. The Allied fleet reports that the enemy has retreated from our space entirely. For now," Lara confirmed. "Though we believe we have bought significant time before any potential return." "And how exactly did you accomplish this?" Dr. Eleanor Williams asked, the Terran ambassador leaning forward with intense curiosity. "The last reports indicated you were on a collision course with the Architect command ship. Your power core was set to overload. By all accounts, you should be dead." Jack stepped forward. "What we experienced is difficult to explain in conventional terms. When our ship made contact with the Architect vessel, we evolved. Our consciousness expanded beyond our physical forms." Murmurs swept through the assembly. Thorin's expression remained carefully neutral. "Evolved? In what way?" Lara raised her hand, allowing her energy to manifest visibly, her fingers glowing with soft light, patterns of energy swirling around her arm. "We have begun a transition similar to what the Guardians experienced eons ago. We exist now as both physical beings and energy consciousness." The murmurs turned to gasps and exclamations. Some officials backed away slightly. Others leaned forward in fascination. "Are you still yourselves?" Rethak asked, voicing the question many were clearly thinking. "General Vex? Commander Davis? Or have you become something else entirely?" "We retain all our memories, our personalities, our loyalties," Jack assured him. "We are still the same people. We have simply expanded." "Expanded into what exactly?" a Valonian council member demanded. "Some kind of energy hybrid, neither human nor Valonian?" "A both human and Valonian," Lara corrected firmly. "And yes, something more as well. Our bond has evolved beyond what any bond pair has achieved before." The Guardian observer moved forward, its energy form pulsing with what Jack now recognized as approval. "They have taken the first step on a path my species walked millennia ago," it explained to the assembly. "The transition from physical existence to energy consciousness. A natural evolutionary step, though one rarely achieved so." Suddenly, "Natural?" Dr. Williams echoed skeptically. "There's nothing natural about this transformation. It's unprecedented. On the contrary, the Guardian replied, many species throughout the cosmos eventually evolve beyond physical form. Your races might have taken this step thousands of years from now, gradually. These two have simply accelerated the process through their unique bond and their encounter with the architects. Thorin raised a hand for silence as the assembly erupted in questions and exclamations. What matters now, he said once order had been restored, is what this means for our alliance, our defense, and our future. He fixed Jack and Lara with a penetrating gaze. What are your intentions now, General? Commander? It was the question they had been preparing for since their transformation. Jack and Lara exchanged a glance, their enhanced bond allowing them to finalize their position in an instant. Our intentions remain what they have always been, Lara stated firmly. To serve our peoples, to protect both Valan and Terra from threats, to strengthen the alliance we have helped forge. Though we are changed, Jack added, our loyalties are not. We stand ready to continue our duties if you will have us. And if we consider you too altered, to continue in your positions? A Terran military official asked bluntly. Jack met his gaze steadily. Then we will accept that decision, while offering whatever assistance we can in other capacities. We understand that our transformation may be difficult for many to accept. The debate that followed was intense, with opinions divided on all sides. Some argued that Jack and Lara's new abilities made them more valuable than ever as leaders and defenders. Others expressed concern about the implications of their transformation, the unknown factors of their new existence, the potential security risks. Through it all, Jack and Lara stood calmly, their presence a testament to the union of human and Valonian that had already accomplished what many had thought impossible, turning ancient enemies into allies, defeating a threat that neither world could have faced alone. Finally, after hours of discussion, Thorin called for a vote of the Joint Leadership Council that had been established to oversee the alliance. We have heard all perspectives, he announced. Now we must decide, do General Vex and Commander Davis continue in their leadership roles despite their transformation? Or do we relieve them of duty with all honor and gratitude for their service? The vote was closer than Jack had expected, but in the end, pragmatism won out over fear. By a narrow margin, the council voted to keep them in their positions, at least for the time being, with certain additional oversight protocols to be established. The council has spoken, Thorin declared. General Vex, Commander Davis, you will continue to lead our joint defense forces. However, he added, his tone sharpening slightly, you will submit to regular examinations by both Valonian and Terran scientists. You will accept certain restrictions on your activities until we better understand the nature and implications of your transformation. And you will fully disclose any new abilities that manifest as your condition evolves. Jack and Lara inclined their heads in acceptance of these terms. They had expected nothing less. Indeed, had they been in the Council's position, they might have imposed even stricter conditions. We understand and accept these terms, Lara confirmed, and we thank the Council for their trust. It is not entirely trust, Thorin admitted candidly. It is also necessity. The architects may be retreating now, but they will return, and when they do, we will need every advantage available to us, including whatever you two have become. The meeting concluded shortly thereafter, with arrangements made for the scientific examinations to begin the following day. As the assembly dispersed, Jack and Lara found themselves approached by the Guardian Observer. You handled that well. It communicated directly to their minds. The first step is always the most difficult, convincing others that evolution is not something to be feared. Will it get easier? Jack asked. In some ways, the Guardian acknowledged. In others, more challenging. As your abilities grow, so too will the concerns of those who remain fully physical. And your own evolution is just beginning. There will be adjustments. What kind of adjustments? Lara inquired. The Guardian's form shifted in what might have been the equivalent of a thoughtful expression. Your perception of time will alter. Your connection to physical matter will become more optional. And your bond will continue to deepen until the distinction between your individual consciousnesses becomes largely academic. Jack felt a momentary unease at this last prediction. Would he lose himself entirely in their merged consciousness? Would Lara? The thought was both frightening and strangely compelling. Sensing his concern, the Guardian added, "Fear not. You will not lose your unique perspectives or experiences. You will simply share them more completely than any physical beings could comprehend. It is not a diminishment, but an expansion." "And our peoples?" Lara asked. "Will they ever truly understand what we've become?" "Perhaps not entirely," the Guardian admitted. "No, but they may come to accept it, and in time, others may follow your path. The bond pairs you have created carry the potential for similar evolution, should circumstances and their own choices lead them there." After the Guardian departed, Jack and Lara found themselves alone in the Great Hall, the echoes of the council meeting still hanging in the air. "Well," Jack said with a slight smile, "that went about as well as could be expected." "Indeed," Lara agreed, "though I suspect the scientific examinations tomorrow will be interesting." Jack chuckled. "I'm not sure Valonian or Terran science has instruments capable of measuring what we've become." "Probably not," Lara conceded. "But allowing them to try will help ease their fears. And that is important if we are to continue serving our peoples effectively." They walked together toward the quarters that had been prepared for them, aware of the sidelong glances and whispers that followed them through the corridors. Their transformation had made them objects of fascination, fear, and speculation, no longer fully belonging to either of their original species, yet bound to both by duty and choice. "Do you regret it?" Jack asked suddenly as they reached their destination. "What we've become." Lara paused, considering the question with her typical thoroughness. "No," she said finally. "I have lived centuries as a Valonian warrior. Jack, I have known victory and defeat, honor and sacrifice, but I have never experienced anything like what we share now. It is a gift I could not have imagined." Through their bond, he could feel the absolute sincerity of her words, could experience her wonder and appreciation as if it were his own. And she, in turn, could feel his relief, his agreement, his own sense of marvel at what they had become. "Besides," she added with a rare smile, "we have work to do. The architects will return eventually, and there are other threats in the cosmos that our peoples know nothing of yet. They will need us, whatever we have become." Jack nodded, his resolve aligning with hers. "Together, then, whatever comes next." "Together," Lara agreed, her energy patterns harmonizing with his in a display invisible to normal perception but blindingly beautiful to their enhanced senses. "To whatever end." And so began the next chapter in their extraordinary journey. No longer simply a human and a Valonian bound by a trial night, but pioneers of a new evolutionary path, guardians of two worlds, and harbingers of possibilities neither of their species had dreamed possible. No one had survived the trial night with General Lara Vex, until the human walked out smiling. And in that unprecedented event, the universe had found not just defenders against the darkness, but guides toward a light that had been waiting all along. Just beyond the boundaries of conventional existence, the scientific examinations the following day were indeed interesting. As Lara had predicted, Teams of the most brilliant minds from both Valon and Terra attempted to measure and quantify what Jack and Lara had become, using instruments designed for physical beings to study what was essentially an energy consciousness, merely maintaining a physical form through choice and habit. Fascinating, Dr. Serena Maxwell, the lead Terran xenobiologist, murmured as she studied the readings from a quantum resonance scanner. Your molecular structure appears normal at first glance, but on the quantum level, there's a coherence pattern I've never seen before. It's as if your atoms are communicating with each other across your entire body. Not just within each of our bodies, Jack explained, between them as well. Our energy patterns are interlinked. The Valonian chief scientist, a stern individual named Kalis, was less enthusiastic and more suspicious. These readings suggest you could potentially alter your physical form at will. Is that accurate? Lara considered the question. We haven't explored that possibility fully yet, but yes, I believe it would be possible with practice. This admission caused a stir among the scientific team. The military observers in the room exchanged concerned glances, and Jack could sense their unease as palpable energy patterns. And that ability would need to be carefully monitored. One Valonian security official stated flatly, as would all our developing abilities, Lara agreed calmly. As we promised the Council, the examinations continued for hours, with test after test yielding results that confused and fascinated the scientists in equal measure. Jack and Lara submitted patiently to it all, understanding the necessity of establishing a baseline for their new existence and easing their people's concerns. Finally, Dr. Maxwell sat back with a sigh of frustration. We're barely scratching the surface here. Our instruments simply aren't designed to measure what you've become. Perhaps we can help design new ones, Jack suggested. Now that we can perceive energy patterns directly, we might be able to help create technology that bridges the gap between physical and energy-based existence. Maxwell's eyes lit up at the suggestion. That would be extraordinary. A whole new field of science. One step at a time, Doctor, Kalis cautioned. First, we need to establish safety protocols. Then we can consider the scientific opportunities. As the day wore on, Jack began to notice something through his bond with Lara. A growing restlessness, a yearning for something she couldn't quite articulate. When they were finally released from the examinations for the day, he brought it up as they walked through the gardens of the Valonian capital complex. You're feeling confined, he observed, restricted. Lara nodded, grateful as always for the directness their bond allowed. Yes, our new perception. It wants to expand further, to explore, being limited to these forms, to this place. She gestured at their surroundings. It feels like wearing clothing that's too tight. Jack understood exactly what she meant. He had been feeling it too, a pull toward the stars, toward the vast spaces between worlds where energy flowed freely. The Guardian mentioned that our connection to physical matter would become more optional, he recalled. Perhaps this is the beginning of that process. Perhaps, Lara agreed. No, but we have responsibilities here, duties we've agreed to maintain. We do, Jack acknowledged, but perhaps we need to find a balance. Some time for exploration of our new state, some time for our duties to our peoples. Lara considered this, then nodded slowly. Yes, a reasonable compromise, but we would need the Council's approval for any extended absence. Then let's ask for it, Jack suggested. After we've completed the current round of examinations and briefings, we can propose a short exploratory mission, perhaps to the edge of the system, away from populated areas. Somewhere we can safely test the limits of our new abilities without causing concern. Lara's energy patterns brightened at the suggestion, her eagerness flowing through their bond. Yes, that would be helpful, necessary, even If we are to fully understand what we've become and how best to use our abilities in defense of our worlds, their opportunity came sooner than expected. 3 days later, as the scientific examinations were winding down with more questions than answers, a Guardian vessel appeared in orbit around Valon, requesting to speak with Jack and Lara specifically. The Council, intrigued and somewhat concerned, agreed to the meeting but insisted it take place on Valonian soil with observers present. The Guardian acquiesced, materializing in the same great hall where Jack and Lara had stood before the Council days earlier. This Guardian was different from the observer who had been present at their hearing. Older, if such a term could apply to energy beings, with patterns that spoke of vast experience and knowledge. Greetings, new ones. It communicated bypassing verbal speech to address their minds directly. I am Elder Luminous, of the Guardian Conclave. I have come to offer you guidance, if you wish it. Jack and Lara exchanged a glance, then responded in kind, their thoughts directed to the Guardian while they maintained a verbal conversation for the benefit of the observers. We welcome your guidance, Elder Luminous, Lara said aloud. Our transformation has raised many questions. Questions we are still learning to formulate, Jack added mentally. Knowing the Guardian would understand both levels of communication, as is natural, Elder Luminous acknowledged. All who walk the path you have begun face similar challenges. The transition from physical to energy consciousness is rarely smooth or simple. Aloud, the Guardian addressed the observers as well. I have come to propose a period of training for these two, a time away from the distractions and limitations of planetary existence, where they can learn to control and understand their evolving abilities. Council Elder Thorin frowned slightly. What kind of training, and for how long? Instruction in the fundamental principles of energy consciousness. Elder Luminous explained. How to maintain stability across different states of being. How to communicate effectively across the spectrum of existence. How to control the enhanced perceptions they now possess. The Guardian's form shifted slightly. As for duration, time functions differently for energy beings. What might seem months to them could be mere days in your perception, or vice versa. This revelation caused consternation among the observers. We cannot approve an open-ended absence, a Terran official objected. General Vex and Commander Davis hold crucial positions in our defense structure. I understand your concern, Elder Luminous acknowledged. Perhaps a compromise. I propose a training period of 1 planetary cycle of Valon, what you would call a month. At the end of that time, they will return, regardless of their progress. Further training can be negotiated later, if needed. Jack and Lara remained silent during this exchange, but through their bond, they shared their thoughts. The opportunity was invaluable, a chance to understand their new existence under the guidance of beings who had walked this path before. Yet they also recognized the legitimate concerns of their peoples, especially with the architect threat still looming, however distant it might currently be. Finally, Thorin turned to them. What are your thoughts on this proposal? Lara spoke first, her voice measured and diplomatic. We believe this training could be essential to our ability to serve effectively in the future. Without proper understanding and control of our abilities, we risk becoming liabilities rather than assets. Additionally, Jack added, what we learn from the Guardians could provide crucial insights into both the Architect's capabilities and potential defenses against them. This knowledge could be vital when they eventually return. The Council deliberated privately for some time before reaching a decision. They would allow the training, but with conditions, a strict time limit of 1 Valonian month, regular communication when possible, and a detailed report upon return. Additionally, the joint fleet would continue preparations and exercises under the command of the senior bond pairs in Jack and Lara's absence. We agree to these terms. Elder Luminous confirmed. They are reasonable and prudent. With the matter decided, preparations began immediately. Jack and Lara spent the following day briefing their second-in-command, transferring necessary authority, and establishing protocols for emergency communication if needed. On the morning of their departure, they stood on the landing pad where a Guardian vessel waited to transport them to the training location, a space station at the edge of the Valonian system, modified to accommodate beings in transition between physical and energy states. Commander Rethak was there to see them off, along with several of the bonded pairs who had become their closest colleagues. A month is not so long, Rethak observed, though his expression suggested he was not entirely convinced of this. The fleet will maintain readiness in your absence. We know it will, Lara assured him. You have all been well trained. And remember, Jack added, if there's a true emergency, the Guardians can bring us back quickly. We won't be unreachable. Rethak nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. May I ask a personal question, Commander? Of course. Are you still human, truly? Or has what you've become changed you in ways we cannot see? It was a profound question, one Jack had been asking himself since the transformation. Through his bond with Lara, he could feel her interest in his answer as well. I am still myself, he said after a moment's reflection. I have all my memories, my values, my connections to Earth and to the people I care about. He glanced at Lara. But I'm also more than I was. My perspective has expanded. I see and understand things I couldn't before. Is that not a fundamental change, then? Rethak pressed. A change is part of life, Commander, Jack replied with a small smile. We all change with time and experience. Mine has simply been more dramatic than most. Rethak seemed to accept this, offering a Valonian salute that Jack and Lara returned with respect. As they boarded the Guardian vessel, Jack felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension flowing through their bond, emotions he shared completely. They were venturing into unknown territory, leaving behind the familiar structures and expectations of their former lives to explore the boundaries of what they had become. The Guardian vessel, unlike conventional ships, had no bridge or control room. It was essentially a living extension of Guardian consciousness, responding directly to thought and intent. As they settled into what might loosely be termed a passenger area, Elder Luminous appeared before them. Now, the ancient Guardian said, your real journey begins. The vessel departed Valon with a grace that defied conventional physics, slipping into a dimension of travel that was neither normal space nor the hyperspace used by Terran and Valonian ships. Through the transparent walls of the vessel, which seemed less physical barriers and more permeable membranes between states of reality, Jack and Lara watched Valon recede, becoming first a sphere, then a disk, then a bright point among countless stars. Beautiful, Jack murmured, though the words seemed woefully inadequate to describe what they were experiencing. Yes, Lara agreed, her energy patterns harmonizing with his in a way that deepened their shared perception. And this is just the beginning. Elder Luminous observed their interaction with what might have been approval. You are already more advanced in your bond than most paired transitions at this stage. Your shared experience with the architects accelerated processes that usually take years. Is that why you offered to train us? Lara asked. Because we're progressing quickly? Oh, partly, the Guardian acknowledged. But also because of what you represent. The first naturally occurring bond transition between different species in this sector of the galaxy. You are, in your way, as unique as the architects are in theirs. And is that significant? Jack inquired. That we come from different species, More than you yet realize, Elder Luminous replied. Most transitions occur within species, individuals of the same kind evolving together. Cross-species transitions are rare and produce interesting results. Your combined perspective encompasses more of the spectrum of existence than either of your original species could access alone. The journey to the training station took what felt like hours, but might have been minutes. Time, as the Guardian had warned, functioned differently in their new state of being. When they arrived, Jack was surprised by what he saw. The station was not a constructed facility as he had imagined, but a naturally occurring phenomenon, a nexus where multiple dimensions intersected, creating a stable pocket of reality where beings of various states could exist comfortably. Welcome, Elder Luminous announced, to the Convergence, one of many such places throughout the cosmos where the boundaries between states of existence are naturally thin. Here, you will learn to navigate the spectrum of being, from solid matter to pure energy and all states between. As they disembarked from the vessel, or perhaps more accurately, as the vessel simply became part of the Convergence, Jack and Lara found themselves in an environment that defied easy description. It seemed solid one moment, fluid the next, shifting in response to their thoughts and perceptions. Your training begins now, Elder Luminous declared, and the first lesson is simply this. Existence is a choice, not a fixed state. Your current forms are habits, not necessities. Learn to let go of them, and you will take your first true step beyond physical limitation. Jack and Lara exchanged a glance, uncertainty flowing between them. Let go of their physical forms? The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. Together? Jack suggested, extending his hand to Lara. She took it without hesitation, her energy patterns intertwining with his. Together. As always, under Elder Luminous's guidance, they began the process of releasing their attachment to physical form, not abandoning it entirely, but recognizing it as just one possible state of being rather than their only option. It was difficult at first, like trying to forget how to breathe after a lifetime of automatic respiration. But slowly, gradually, they began to shift. Their joined hands became less solid, more luminous. Their bodies began to glow from within, physical boundaries becoming permeable, energy flowing freely between them and around them. Yes, Elder Luminous encouraged. Feel the freedom. Your consciousness is not contained by flesh. It never was. The container was always an illusion. The sensation was indescribable, like shedding a weight they hadn't known they were carrying. As their physical forms dissolved further into patterns of pure energy, their perceptions expanded exponentially. They could sense the entire convergence, could feel the various dimensions intersecting around them, could perceive the other beings, guardians and others who existed there in various states of physicality. Most extraordinarily, their bond deepened to a level that transcended any previous connection. They remained distinct consciousnesses, with separate memories and experiences, but the boundaries between them became so permeable as to be almost meaningless. Jack was Lara was Jack was Lara, a continuous loop of shared existence that felt more natural than breathing had in their physical forms. This, Elder Luminous communicated directly to their merged consciousness, is merely the beginning, the first step on a path that has no end, only continuous evolution and expansion. For what might have been moments or centuries, time had indeed lost all conventional meaning. Jack and Lara existed in this state of pure energy consciousness, learning to navigate, to communicate, to perceive across dimensions that had previously been invisible to them. When they finally returned to something resembling their original forms, it was by choice rather than necessity, a decision to re-experience physicality with their new understanding, rather than a retreat from energy state. Well done, Elder Luminous commended them. Many struggle for far longer with their first transition. Your bond has served you well. Jack looked down at his hands, which appeared solid but which he now knew were simply energy patterns held in familiar shape by his own will. It's overwhelming, he admitted. The perceptions, the awareness. Yes, Lara agreed, like trying to process 1,000 streams of information simultaneously. That is why control is the next lesson, Elder Luminous explained. Learning to filter, to focus, to direct your awareness selectively. Without such control, you would indeed be overwhelmed by the totality of perception available to energy consciousness. And so began their true training. Days or weeks or months of intensive instruction in the fundamentals of energy existence. They learned to shift between states at will, to communicate across vast distances through quantum entanglement, to perceive and interpret energy patterns from the subatomic to the galactic scale. Most importantly, they learned to maintain their individual identities within their deepening bond, to share consciousness without losing themselves in the merger. It was a delicate balance, like two rivers joining while still maintaining the memory of their separate sources. Throughout it all, they occasionally sent brief communications back to Valon and Terra, reassuring their peoples that the training was progressing well and that they remained committed to their duties. Time in the convergence made these communications seem oddly displaced. Events that had felt like months to Jack and Lara had been mere weeks on their homeworlds. Finally, as their training neared completion, Elder Luminous gathered them for what would be their final lesson. You have learned much, the ancient guardian observed. More than most achieve in such a brief period. But there is one final truth you must understand before you return to your peoples. Jack and Lara waited attentively, their energy patterns steady and controlled, a far cry from the chaotic fluctuations of their early days in the convergence. The path you have begun has no predetermined destination, Elder Luminous told them. Some who achieve energy consciousness eventually transcend this dimension entirely, moving on to planes of existence we can barely comprehend. Others choose to remain connected to the physical universe, serving as guardians or guides to evolving species. And some, like yourselves, may find a unique path that incorporates elements of both. How will we know which path is right for us? Lara asked. You won't, the guardian replied simply. Not for centuries, perhaps millennia. The choice will evolve as you evolve, shaped by your experiences, your values, and the needs of those you care for. Jack considered this. So we might eventually leave behind our connection to our homeworlds entirely. It is possible, Elder Luminous acknowledged. But it is equally possible that your unique bond, forged between different species, rooted in service and protection, will lead you to remain connected to physical existence far longer than most who walk this path. Lara's energy patterns shifted in what Jack recognized as thoughtful consideration. Our duty to our peoples remains important to us, she said. Even in this new state. As it should, the guardian agreed. Such connections are not limitations but anchors. They give meaning and purpose to evolution that might otherwise become mere self-indulgence. As their training concluded and the time approached for their return to Valon, Jack and Lara spent a final moment in the heart of the convergence, existing as pure energy in perfect harmony. Are you ready? Jack asked through their bond. To return to physical existence, to politics and responsibilities and all the complications we left behind? Yes, Lara replied without hesitation. Our journey has only begun. Jack, what we've learned here is just the foundation for what comes next. And what is that exactly? he queried, a touch of humor in his energy patterns. I have no idea, she admitted, her own patterns reflecting amusement. But whatever it is, we'll face it together. Together, he agreed, as always. They returned to their physical forms one last time within the convergence, preparing for the journey back to Valon. As they did, Elder Luminous approached with a final observation. You return changed, the Guardian noted. Not just in your abilities, but in your perspective. Your peoples may find you more different than when you left, in ways that have nothing to do with energy patterns or physical transformation. Jack nodded, understanding the warning. We'll be patient with them, help them understand as much as they're ready to, and continue our own evolution while serving them, Lara added. Finding the balance between what we've become and what they need us to be, Elder Luminous's form brightened in what might have been approval. That wisdom alone makes your transition remarkable. Many who achieve energy consciousness become detached from physical concerns, viewing them as trivial or transient. That you maintain your commitment to your people speaks well of you both. The journey back to Valon seemed briefer than their departure, perhaps because they now had a better understanding of the non-linear nature of time in energy states. As the Guardian vessel approached the Valonian homeworld, Jack and Lara prepared themselves for the adjustment back to conventional existence, the politics, the responsibilities, the limitations of dealing with beings who perceived reality so differently from how they now did. Home, Jack said as Valon grew larger in their view. One of them, Lara corrected gently. We have many homes now, across many states of being. He smiled, understanding her meaning perfectly. True. But this one still matters. Yes, she agreed, her energy patterns harmonizing with his. It always will. The Guardian vessel entered orbit around Valon, where a welcoming committee awaited, both Valonian and Terran officials, along with several of the bonded pairs who had become their closest allies and friends. As they prepared to disembark and resume their duties, Jack and Lara shared one final private moment of perfect communion, their energies merging in a promise that transcended words or even thoughts. No one had survived the trial night with General Lara Vex, until the human walked out smiling. And in that unprecedented event, the universe had found not just defenders against darkness or bridges between worlds, but pioneers of a new evolutionary path, one that might, in time, lead all sentient beings toward a unity and understanding beyond anything physical existence alone could provide. Whatever challenges awaited them, the eventual return of the architects, the politics of their respective worlds, the continuing evolution of their own existence, they would face them as they had faced everything since that fateful trial night. Together,